Hey guys, Andy here from Mediocre Hobbies, coming at you with another Contrast Space Marine video. This time I'm trying to tackle one of the more difficult schemes of Space Marine out there, and that is of course the Howling Griffons. Quartered yellow and red, using contrast, washing it down, and then layering it up to give you a really nice, bright, popping color scheme on your Space Marines. I hope you enjoy the video. Okay, so once again using an Assault Intercessor miniature to do the painting of the Howling Griffons chapter. I've said it before, I like using Assault miniatures because they're open posed. The model was sprayed black and then given a coat of grey sear as well. I used Imperial Fist contrast, one of the newer contrasts, as the base coat for the yellow. I find Imperial Fist contrast is an absolutely stunning colour to base coat yellow with, and in some cases just leave as the yellow. It's just a brilliant coat, solid, very little streaking. It is definitely my favorite of the new contrast paints. So I of course had a reference picture of a Howling Griffon, mainly because I always forget which quarter is which. I have a habit of doing it the wrong way round, so yeah, having a picture up definitely helps, especially finding one that is indeed an Assault Intercessor as well, knowing which parts of the miniature are exactly quartered. By that I mean things like the belt buckle style area, where exactly does the quartering start and end. So going around and going over with all the Imperial Fist yellow, not really being too careful with the exact line where the red will start, and also paying into the fact that I've started with the yellow is that the red will go over the yellow and give still quite a strong coat without any hassle. So if you go over into the red section, the red will tidy that up. So it's when we get to the red that we're going to be looking for those nice, neat, tidy lines that will distinguish this miniature as a Howling Griffon. So once again, power through, get all the yellow on. Make sure in behind the backpack, the power pack, sorry, and stuff like that is also all Imperial Fisted up. I almost missed his codpiece. I had to go back and do it a little bit later on. That was a mistake on my part. And of course, half of the helmet. Even though you don't have to be too careful, it is nice to kind of practice your straight lineage with applying the yellow. This is definitely one of those chapters which seems a lot more difficult than it is. Having things, quartering things, it does seem really complicated, but it's not. There's such small areas that you need to put a line through that it's very steady hand is not required. Just need to keep your hand steady for maybe 2 or 3 seconds. Blood Angel's red contrast was then used for the other quarter of this miniature. So left leg, right torso, stage left, you know what I mean. And like I said previously, this is where we are going to be super careful with having all of the parts. So that big armored plate that goes over his butt is one of the first ones we'll be doing as an example. And as you can see, the yellow has bled over to more of the side than it should have, but the red will go over that absolutely no problem. Although yellow isn't as difficult as it used to be with the introduction of things like contrast and some really good high quality paints, I still find it quite a chore to do. And it's only in projects like this where it really comes to fruition. You really do see the difference, how enjoyable it is to paint in colors like red, which is just an absolute, I think red is the easiest color to paint with. It's just such a strong pigment. It just gives such nice smooth coats. And then you go across and do the yellow and you have a nightmare of a time, but that's fine. So as you can see, I'm going down the middle of his abs now, having the yellow as I go. Like I said, we are going to be going into a layering stage. We'll be layering up the yellow and we'll be layering up the red. So if these lines aren't 100% perfect here, that is not a problem. We can tidy them up in the layer phase. And you will find you have slightly better control with layering up with layer paints than you will with the contrast paints being so kind of liquidy. They like to flow out of their lines. Black Templar was used for all the other parts of the miniature. We're going to go in with that. So all of the soft seals on the Space Marine. So basically anywhere where 2 armor panels meet and there's that kind of rigid material, That's what's known as the kind of soft seal, the undersuit, if you will. And we just want to get some Black Templar contrast paint into all of these areas. I'm also going to go over his combat knife and his heavy bolt pistol with the same paint. It's a very quick and easy step. It's also a really nice way to break up the yellow and red as well. Although on a model like this, it seems silly to want to try and break up the yellow and red, since how the whole scheme is based around having yellow and red next to each other. But you know what I mean. The addition of a third color, even if it is black, is quite nice. It definitely tidies up the scheme. And after I had finished applying the black, I once again stopped and took a look at the miniature as it stood and could see what the final result might look like, and that's when I started to get excited, which is this stage here. It's already starting to look like a Howling Griffon. Iron Hand Steel was used to base coat all of the metallic parts except for the hilt and pommel of the knife. We're going to go with some gold for those. So basically the blade and every part of the heavy bolt pistol except for like the outer casing is going to be done in silver. The outer casing on this particular miniature I'm actually going to leave black. But that's personal preference. People do the bolt casings in grey and red and all sorts of other colours, whatever suits you the best. But I'm going to go for black with this, as I think the model already has enough kind of bright colours. I don't want to try and throw anything crazy in there. And if I would, it would be something muted like a grey, which wouldn't draw too much attention away from the other parts. Retributor Armour Gold was used for the hilt and pommel of the combat knife. Most of the time these guys have chain swords, which don't have any gold, any pommel, any stuff, fancy stuff like that. But since I have applied a combat knife to this miniature, I decided I might as well do a good job of it. Okay, with that, that's all of the base coats done on this miniature, so now it's time to shade it. For this, I'm going to go for Nuln Oil. This is the new mix of Nuln Oil, the thinner variant, which will not stain nearly as bad as the old one, which means you can apply it over things like yellow, and it's not going to do a crazy job. It's not going to make it super, super dark. It is going to shade it nicely. I've also added a touch of water into that just to thin it down even further, so that it really doesn't stain the yellow all that much. While the shade is drying, I'm also going to take the opportunity to base the miniature, just so when I'm moving towards the finish line, I've already got the model based and I can see what it's actually going to look like. That's just a personal preference to me, but I really like layering a model from this stage with the base already done. It just makes me happy. Okay, from here I'm going to go for Yriel Yellow and I'm going to start layering up the yellow. This is by far the part of the paint job which took the longest and was the most tedious, but it is all down to the yellow. It's all down to the idea of using the two thin coat method for this. If you try and get one thick coat, trying to get away with only doing one coat on the yellow, you're going to fail miserably and you're going to end up with a really horrible result. And that's something that I'm guilty of, trying to go for a slightly thicker coat of paint so that I don't have to repaint it. Unfortunately, it is best to just go, especially with yellow, with two thin coats. And just following the armor panels around, leaving all of that nice shaded black in all the recesses, all the dark lines, and trying to make that yellow really pop. Yriel Yellow is the one that's kind of like a golden color, which I think matches the Howling Griffons best. If you personally have a yellow that you're more comfortable using and you think gives better coverage, then by all means use that. Citadel colors are still the ones that I am the most comfortable using, so the ones that I tend to stick to quite a lot. This is me following through with the second coat, and as you can see what the second coat does over the first, it definitely pushes it to a much more golden look. And that's simply the idea of building up the coats from yellow contrast. One coat of Yriel, second coat finally gives you the result that I'm after. So I'm very carefully going to go around with the second coat pretty much hitting exactly the same spots as the first coat. I'm not going to try and miss anything. I'm not going to try and expand the highlights or anything like that. Just a nice solid coat of yellow. From here we're going to move over to Mephiston Red and we're going to layer up, of course, the red side of it. And like I was saying, red is absolutely a beautiful color to paint, so we will just need a single solitary coat of Mephiston Red over the red armor to really make it pop and finish it off. This is where you can really make those final adjustments to the quartered part of the scheme, tidying up those lines, making sure they're arrow straight. And the only places that they really need to be arrow straight is the backpack, down the center of the chest, and the head. The other bits are all kind of broken up by like those soft seals, the black belt that goes around his waist, or other parts of the miniature that people won't really be paying attention to. Face, chest, backpack. Those are the three things. And just to disorientate like people looking even more, because the head is tilted, if the head was looking straight on, which I never think a head should be ever, they should always be looking in a direction, whether it's towards the direction the gun is pointing or they're fighting with the sword, something like that. You don't have one continuous line going from basically his groin area up over the back of his backpack and down, which means that you can get away with the lines not being quite as straight. If the head was straight on, so you had a very clear line of half the model is yellow and half the model is red, any mistakes are going to scream out even more. And here's me cleaning up those lines. And with that is the yellow and red complete on the miniature. It's time to start making the silver a little bit brighter. So for this, I'm going to jump over to Ironbreaker. I'm going to quickly layer up the blade, the bolt pistol as well, and I'm also going to hit the Aquila in the center of his chest. This is where I'm going to layer up that whole piece, each individual wing, just to give it a nice bright silver scheme. For Aquilas, 99% of the time, I go with a gold scheme, but gold does not look well over yellow in my opinion. So that's why I went for this. So for my silver chest, all I did was the black Templar over the top. And then like I said, I'm going to go in and layer each individual wing and the skull of the Aquila. And that gives me a fantastic result. I also took the opportunity to fill in the eye lenses with that bright silver, so that I could go in with a warp lightning contrast and give him his glowing green eye lenses. Usually I go for a blue, but the artwork that they depicted on the website that I was copying had them as green eye lenses, so who was I to argue? And with that, I have my final finished Howling Griffon miniature to add to my playlist, my ever-growing playlist of Space Marine painting videos. So if you guys have any ideas on what the next one should be, please put it in the comments below. Okay guys, and there we have it. One Howling Griffon completed using, of course, the contrast for the base coats, shaded down, and then layered up as you've seen in the video. If you did enjoy the video, make sure you give it a like. Ask me any questions you'd like in the comments below. And please, if you've not already subscribed to my channel, it would mean the world to me if you took 2 seconds out of your day and hit that subscribe button. If you would like to be more involved in the Mediocre Hobbies channel and get access to the private Discord server where we're going to be running some painting competitions and all in all just having a good time, then there's links to things like my Patreon below, which of course give you access to that. Thank you guys so much for watching to the end of the video. I'll see you in the next one.